If you continue, we're going to recess the meeting, and you're going to be removed from the room.
Wow. Protests erupt in Chapel Hill during the UNC Board of Governors meeting. Students opposed to the decision to hire Margaret Spellings as the system president started shouting before 9:30, shutting the meeting down. CBS North Carolina's Bo Minnick joins us live in Chapel Hill with an update. Bo, that's quite dramatic there.
She left me.
It is, Russ, and actually they're just about to start a press conference here. A dozen protesters stopped that meeting. That group eventually voluntarily left, but there was more yelling right outside the window at that point.
We, WPR, we got the power, 'cause we are the collective.
That meeting was moved here from Asheville partially because of the protests, and actually as we're talking here, they will be getting started here in just a second. As soon as they do, we'll take that the press conference here. Demonstrators don't think that Spellings is right for UNC, and they've been critical of her record, which included serving on the board of a company that collects student loan debt. They also say that House Bill 2 has hurt the university system.
A lack of representation. I don't feel like I'm being represented. I don't feel like my friends are being represented. I don't feel like HBCUs are being represented. I don't feel like they're responding appropriately to HB2.
To the protesters who've devoted their time and energy to criticizing me, I say I hear you, and what I ask in return is that you hear from me and from this board.
And right now we're hearing from the Board of Governors Chair Lou Bissett has just taken the podium here.
Knows everything about everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
So let's get started. I got to get back to it.
So I guess the biggest thing, we still are seeing these protesters disrupting the meeting. What can be done?
Well, I mean, I'm beginning to believe, this is a part of our system. I don't like it. I particularly don't like the rudeness that a number of these, and the lack of common decency that a number of these protesters have. But I understand it. I'm a big boy. I've been around a long time. They're protesters. They're doing what they think they need to be doing, although I don't agree with it. We're doing what we think we need to be doing, and that is operating the university system to educate North Carolina students and to give them a high-quality, low-cost education, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do. So, do I like it? No.
So there's really nothing more that can be done on your part to kind of stop it.
No, we're starting in May our listening sessions, where we're going to have a session. Haven't actually come up with the exact time. It'll be during our meetings where people can sign up and come in and tell the Board of Governors what they want us to hear. The problem now is, these people out there, they're not advancing their cause because they're out there screaming and screaming vulgarities. It'd be a lot better, it seems to me, if they came in and said, these are our issues and we'd like to talk about it with you. Do I think that's going to happen with that particular group? Probably not. But hopefully there will be people from across the state who will want to come in and talk to the Board of Governors who have genuine issues and are willing to not just have a one-way screaming match, but to have a dialogue between the board and themselves to address issues. So that's what I hope will happen.
Chairman Bissett, your reaction to President Spellings' comments, in particular about House Bill 2 today, it sounded as though she has had some interactions with some chancellors who are expressing concerns about the dollar impact, the impact with business.
Well, we're concerned about all of the impacts. First of all, the university system, we didn't have anything to do with this. We didn't have anything to do with the Charlotte Ordinance being passed. We didn't have anything to do with the General Assembly's bill. But yet somehow we've been thrust into the middle of this thing. And I think it's a little bit unfair. We're here trying to do our job and educate people, and to be placed in the middle of this thing like it's something we did when we didn't, I think it's unfair.
Well, at the same time, the president did send out a memo to the university system saying that they do plan to comply with HB2, and some people say, well, it wasn't really necessary for her to write that, or for the board to write that. So, is that in a sense support for the bill?
It is not support for the bill. Margaret has explained that a number of times. The chancellors were asking for guidance from the president, which is what they need to do. And she was just trying to get something out to them saying, this is what the bill says. But I will disagree. When we're told what the law is, and I'm not sure we know that now. There's a lawsuit pending. There's a lot going on. The governor's issued some executive orders. But as far as I'm concerned, when the university finds out what the law is, we're like you. We don't have a choice. We have to obey the law. And so I hope, I'm very hopeful that reason will prevail and
Okay. That is Lou Bissett you're hearing from there. He's talking about the protesters and HB2. Protesters who were there because of Margaret Spelling's presence and hiring as the president of the UNC system. He told us that it's just part of our system. He doesn't necessarily like the rudeness and the lack of common decency, but he understands it. He just doesn't agree with it. As far as HB2 is concerned, he says that the school system really has nothing to do with it. They were thrust in the middle of it, and they think that it's unfair. Of course, we'll have much more from Bo Minnick and a wrap-up of all of this for you coming up today at 5 o'clock.